Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
All right, let's get started. My hesitation and delay was we just got the weather for the right turf major tomorrow. The JJ probably was disappointed by that just as much as I was, but to make sure, we'll bring him up to the stage. Welcome, the JJ.
I actually haven't even looked. I was going to do it live.
Yielding.
Now you've now spoiled for me. So I'm guessing it went soft.
No, yielding, but I mean,
yeah, still
we'll run with good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I raced in a bunch of the 40 percenters this week to qualify, and I think I hit one of each. So yeah, I got.
I don't know if I got as. Okay, soft. I don't know if I got into the good one. I was in soft, and I was in the fast one.
Yeah.
I didn't race a ton this week for any of the horses, but knew we had one that we wanted to try to get into this race, and did win that fast track 10 furlong. So that should have been a decent precursor to this race, but I will bring up my screen so we can see the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the best condition for being an exciting race. The race has probably the most diverse that I've paid attention to in terms of entrants. We got an A+, we got an RDS, we've got some S+, some S-. I mean, it's kind of all over. So when you throw yielding in there, I think it brings a lot of people in play. You got some firm 0 stars, so it definitely brought a lot of people into play. Definitely was hoping for the firm, because at least the ones that, I don't want to use the term matters, but the early right turf for Gen 0 all rolled soft, right? There weren't any firm ones.
The first 2 seasons, yeah.
Most, I think there were some once everyone had retired, but was definitely hoping we could get a firm track for the first time in a major that really had good competition. So 40% would I don't have it in front of me, but it's probably what, 20% to go yielding, like 20.
Sounds
60,
right. Yeah.
And then very small for soft and fast. So
Yeah, not that. I mean, we could talk about morning line odds. They've been useful in the past. They might be somewhat useful again now. I'm starting to warm up to them again.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, I've never thought morning light odds reflected the number of preferences or even which of the
Right.
preferences a horse had. So
Definitely
the
not.
morning line favorite on the majors, the downgrade, which is the S plus RDS out of D stables, and that is a fantastic horse. Won
Yeah.
more than 50% of the time, hits the board, or first or second, what, 67% of the time there, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have a particular distance preference? Is this the sweet spot for it? I don't
It's
know a lot
definitely
about this
long.
horse.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's got like an 83 at 10 furlongs and 83 at 12. So for in terms of fleet figure, I'm assuming those were on dirt. Pretty
Well,
sure.
it was in the
Pretty sure
qualifier this week that we won. I know that one. This one, yeah, the Velvet Cup. It got second on fast for a horse that prefers
yeah, yeah,
dirt.
it's a monster
Yeah.
horse. My horse was in that one. I remember being surprised that it did so well at fast. So
It was the same distance. So yeah, you would think if you
it's definitely
got
live.
second on fast, it's got to be pretty well received on a yielding track.
Yeah.
Next choice would be Super Glue. I think it's the only 12-1. I think as I
Drama's
scroll through.
11.
Oh no, Drama 11.
Yeah, drama would be.
Drama's 11. And then Monster's 12-1 as well. That horse always pulls really good odds.
Yeah, it didn't score a lot of points.
Harmony.
I think he only had 10 qualifying points, which means he didn't win a race. I think was in the race that the A plus won, which was pretty shocking. That was, I think, the first qualifier of the week. Yeah, for drama, I think it's a little longer. I think it's more like an 8 furlong being the best out of memory. But yielding,
Yeah,
definitely brings
it
into
seems
play.
like this one actually kind of followed what Chiro was, in that it was kind of a 7 furlong horse, and actually Diva might have been that as well. So this is one where, I mean, if I look at this, I would say it doesn't really have a distance preference. Maybe 8 is the best, but hasn't raced enough everywhere. And I don't think a horse prefers 8 if it can also win at 5 and place at 4.
Yeah, I think Diva was a little bit longer, like maybe 9 to 10, and like you said, Churro was probably more 6 to 7. So I think this one is probably right in the middle. I would probably, between the two S pluses, I would probably bet the downgrade over drama.
Correct. Yeah, I guess
I
I don't think I would have Drama in my top 5. Maybe top 5, but not in the top 3. I don't think. So then, yeah, we'll pull up Monster here quick, and then the other one that tied for third choice was Super Glue. I don't know enough about this horse because I don't do RTS, but it seems like it's a monster.
Yeah,
not Monster the horse, but Monster in performance.
Right. Yeah, Super Glue and Gallup from Big Brain have been on like win streaks. Like haven't really missed first or second in a while like on distance preference. So if it would have, I think they were both live good, just based on distance preference. So again, going yielding, I think I would probably put the top 3 or 4 favorites as soft horses over anything that rolled firm.
I mean, and I think we saw some of that in the early majors as well, is that the firm horses really didn't perform very well. I think we had Gold in the first major, got second in a soft track.
And Walter White and all those had S plus stand and finish, where the firms had the start. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Super Glue is probably the favorite in my opinion, even over the D stables. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's tough about it is, I guess it's never lost at 10. No, it's never lost at 9. But it seems like the longer the distance, the better, which isn't always a good thing if you're trying to stop exactly at 10 furlongs.
Right,
but
might not be fully in the kick, but
I don't know. It seems pretty solid.
the Gallop horses won 3 in a row. One of those was 5 furlongs, so that I don't know if that they ran at 82 at 5, which is kind of crazy when it also ran a 90 and 81 at 9. So this horse looks to seem to like all the distances. Comes from a unique blood, S minus and Walter White, so it has that 2 S plus finishes. I guess I've never even really looked at Grand Dam that much, but this is the Gallop horse, Big Brains horse.
I think it's
I didn't realize
Galib.
that S
It's a
minus
car
that
model.
S minus had S plus finish. I don't think I ever realized that the Gen Zero S minus had an S plus stat
Interesting.
or finish. Yeah, they say finish or stamina, but it's finish. But yeah, so that's really solid. I don't think I got beat by this horse plenty. I guess I never actually clicked back in to see the parents. So yeah, I don't know. Probably I think I'd probably put this horse in Super Glue 1-2. Not sure which yet, but probably
That's
Super
kind of
Glue.
it's an ugly chart there, at least in finishing positions. We haven't fixed the time box and whiskers, right? No, I just
No.
want to showcase it because it still sucks that it's still broken.
Yeah, it was so useful when that came out. I totally remember like when that came out. I think it was maybe a few weeks in. It was still definitely when Gen Zeros were racing. I totally remember my profitability just like skyrocketing because of that chart. So it is very useful when it works. Very unfortunate that it's not, but
So yeah, Galib.
yeah, this
has
horse I guess
3
maybe does
wins
look
at
more like
10, 9, and 11. Yeah, I don't think it has very strong distance preference, but if you look at
an
its results
86
this week
figure though is pretty fucking high at 10.
at
Like,
10, yeah, that's fair.
that's pretty solid. So maybe we got some
You were
aging
there.
going on there. Not sure, but yeah, Monster. Did you look at that one? You said was the next
Yeah,
one.
yep. Yeah, these
Yes,
these
this
horses
was
we're
another
just looking
Walter
at
White
now.
that switched over.
Yeah, now we're in the what was morning line odds at 13-1, I think, is these two we just looked at now. So Depoison Retirement Plan, one out of Brad, Miami Nations, Right Turf Stable. This one I've raced a lot. I don't know if I know for sure it's distance preference. That is
Never
decidedly
remember
mid.
between
That's like
Excelsior and the other one are both his. I can't remember which one was.
normally I really struggle to tell you like a horse like truly prefers mid distance, but when you have like results like that at 7, again, be nice if this timing box and whiskers work, because you'd still want to check the fields it ran in. But I definitely have run against this horse a ton of times.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, all these are at least 6-ish, 7-ish horse, 9-ish horse races. So ran a bunch of allowances early, so maybe you cross some of those off. I guess I'm not a big fan of counting S results in allowance races, but the third there at 8, fourth, second. There's the first win in a graded stakes. There's another one at 8, 7. So maybe not as good as I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I think his other horse is definitely the better of the two for this race.
Which one am I missing?
Excelsior. He's up. Yeah.
Oh, Excelsior.
This is same. Both hit Walter White, but this is AK-47, and I think if you think all the way back to Gen Zero, this horse was like AK-47 was like a 12 furlong killer at S minus. So looking at it, it definitely looks like it prefers longer.
Pretty lightly run, and definitely was convinced it was a long distance horse, never even racing it below 9. I mean, it did miss the board completely at 9, which is probably a disappointing result. We can try to find that one here quick just to see. Yielding 6-horse race. Yeah. But yeah, won its last race at RTF, 10 furlongs. I don't know if I like any of these horses compared to the first two we looked at, though.
I think it makes it interesting for the soft horses, but I don't think a firm horse has a chance.
Yeah, Super Glue and the Downgrade for sure of the ones we looked at are the two that I think are head and shoulders above the rest. We can quickly go through some of the rest of them, but I think I'm almost to the point where a lot of these horses that are left, I don't think have that big of a chance. The caveat to that is we do see some wonky results once you get a 20 horse field from time to time.
Yeah, there's
Whether
definitely
that's
definitely hard to
or
play.
temper, but yeah.
No, none of them have raced probably with more than 10 horses in a race, so that could play. I think the A plus is worth talking about just because it's so unique that to get an A plus as a qualifier, it's not like this horse, like back when the Gen 1s were like light and you could just throw any horse in and it be the best as an A plus in a 4-horse qualifier. But like it took down Monster in the first qualifier. I think that was the Grandmaster Invitational. It was only five horse field, but it took down 2 S's. So again, with yielding, probably not in play here, but I think it's worth highlighting that like there's so much talk lately about, really just the inbreeding in general, but like inbreedings being good because they're global grade, and it's like this is an example right here where global grade doesn't really mean shit. Like this horse obviously has probably S stam or above, and probably good finish to be doing to just beating S horses in even weight fields. So it wasn't the only time when it won the first qualifier. I went back. It had won a couple other races against S's in open fields too. So yeah, it's a Born to Run and a
and Born to Run was a longer distance, kind of early peak horse.
Yeah, talk to Mr. B. He knew he sold this horse. I don't remember how much for, but
yeah,
he knew it was a good horse when he sold it. Like he knew it was a longer distance. Like I don't think he thought it was the S horse is good, but
got about 100,000 for it. That's pretty good for an A plus.
Yeah, it's really good for an A plus colt.
Oh yeah, even colt. I didn't see that.
That's really good. Yeah, that's really good. Wow, good buy. I mean, it's paid itself off, I'm sure. Not all the way yet, but when you had Crown in it, probably has 80K earnings.
So of the S minuses, do you like Nikos or not so much?
I think that horse is probably a mid as well. It's a good horse, 17 wins, 36 starts. Don't think it really showed up in terms of like win equity in these qualifiers. I think it only had like 10 or so points. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, I think it's more like if you look at its chart, it's more of a 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Which is
if
in
it
line
was
with
an ass, I would say it's possible, but yeah.
Yeah, so Nikos was a 26 boost A plus at right turf, which meant it had 2 speed. The only thing it was missing was a third point in speed, which nobody could have 27, obviously. It was very unique to right turf, as we know. You couldn't. So most people actually lost a subgrade on their Gen 0 ticket at speed, where Nikos didn't. And I think that's it. It won everything as a Gen 0 because nobody could touch it in a sprint or even like a mid as a soft or firm horse. So it looks like that's carried over. And I believe Trotsky was also like a 7. It didn't. That horse wasn't raced much, but yeah.
This one we sold. I'm guessing he did fairly well on this. This was one of the. I think it's maybe the only S filly we've sold. Wow, we're in claimers. Is this
S-. You sold a couple S minuses, right?
Colt.
Maybe only from that first crop.
Yeah. Oh, Hazel's S filly I sold, but yeah, that was the second crop one. I got it confused. So I must have ran it in this claimer then. That must have been me. I bet it was 83.
Probably.
Sounds like something I would do.
Yeah.
A month ago.
Ted has claimed a lot of colts. He
I think he's got like 6 or 7 of them from us.
He's got a few from me.
Ridiculous.
One of the horses that he qualified in here, which I couldn't figure out how to run it, so good for him. But Midnight Rain is probably the worst horse in this field, but he did qualify it. That was mine. He claimed it. So yeah, shout out Ted. Most people are just hoarding fillies, and he's probably got one of the few stables where, at least purchase-wise, actually I know he's probably the only one who's bought more colts than fillies and actually used them to race for his farm. So shout out Ted.
Let's see what he's got for females. It's not very many. I know he bought like 2 yesterday.
Yeah, he's bought a couple of them.
Too. And this is the one that I sold. This is also a hazel breed, I think. So this is the, maybe I'm gonna screw up. No, it is a hazel one. Yeah. So 2 years apart. So he's got 2 of the offspring from hazel, which is our A+25 RTF filly. Yeah, he's got a fair amount of fillies in here. But like, if you look at the names, like it's pretty obvious to me. Like, Full of Summer is ours, Full of Page is ours, Full of Old Trafford is ours, Crown Maxey's is yours, Christopher Morel's ours. And then obviously that one was from us as well. So
Yeah,
I love that he's gone so heavy into RTF. We definitely could use
360
more
wins
players
on there. That was gonna be probably like the other thing I was gonna talk about was more so like it's pretty good mixture of like names, right, that are in this race. Like it's not just, again, I don't pay but so much attention to all the other ones, but I think in a lot of cases there's been times where like one person qualifies 5 horses or 6 horses, right? Like you didn't really see that. I think Ghost qualified like 3 for JPEG, but didn't end up putting them all in.
Yeah,
But
I don't think
overall,
there's. I don't know that anybody's got more than 2 in here, right?
Ed's got 2, Brad's got 2.
Big
Stable
Brain's got a couple
33,
in
I
there.
think, has 2. So yeah, for the most part, or Wimbledon's got 2. So like it's a pretty good mix. Like there wasn't like nobody that was just like taking a fourth of the field and dropping it in there or something like that.
Woloff's got 2 in here too, right? Or is it just the one? Must be 2. Yeah, so
Wolof
most people
has,
stopped at 2.
Yeah, I don't think
I think
anyone
he's
put a
got 2.
third, even if they did that. So yeah.
Guess we'll pull up mine. 15-1, but I don't think we're all that live. Had we gotten fast, I think we would have been live, but it really hasn't been that great of a racer. I suspect it's got a 6.9-year-old peak racing age. I'm not going to race it that long to find out.
Yeah, when are you going to retire it? You going to race it again next season?
This season.
Or?
No, I'll retire this season.
This time, yeah. Yeah,
so
I was definitely
9 of
hoping
9 S minus Philly and then Jupiter.
Yeah, I would have been tempted to retire mine this season, the S minus, just because I'm impatient, and if it actually got to race fast here or something and show out, like it's been an awesome racer. It's a better than most sire, which would just duplicate him out in the barn. Maybe I would have just kept this one and turned. I don't know what I would have done, but I really am just curious to see because he really has been a super solid racer. And the breeding report doesn't look anything crazy in the fact that it stayed S minus. I don't know where he could have gotten the bumps and the minuses, but I think at this point now, though, I'm probably racing him until he can't run anymore. Given that this was the only shot for like a true major.
Yeah. Yeah, this actually is one of the few horses for distance preference that feels like it fits the race, though. So yeah, again, not great because the 3-star Furman getting a yielding track. I'm assuming you've run on yielding before. I don't know if there's a notable difference in.
Yeah, I definitely have. Let's see.
Big figures.
Yielding
So
is yellow.
you've ran an 80 at soft. That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
70 at 9 yielding.
No, 80. The 80 was on fast, I believe, just the other day. 79 at soft. Yeah, 79 at soft. Yes, I don't know. I don't know what stat it is that's good because he's done good in bigger fields. He's done terrible in big fields. He's done good on fast, soft. It's interesting.
I think just
I'm not a big visuals
preference.
guy, but every time he wins, like he wires it, which is interesting. So I guess 20 seconds into the race, I'll have an idea if he's even going to have a shot.
Catching up on chat here. Pokeplayer wants to know what color name you get if you win the race, because it's obviously not red. And Tom from Blue Elder suggests brown. With the lack of prestige. That's, that would make sense too, because Royal Ascot is probably the most prominent turf races in the world, obviously not in the States. and that is a right turf racing setup as well. So I do think green makes sense for whatever reason. I mean, this isn't the first one we've had, so I certainly don't think that we're going to get colored name changes or name color changes.
Yeah, maybe when
but
that partnership hits, but I'm
that
cool
would
with
be a
that.
nice one.
But yeah, so like that breeding report doesn't really scream that this horse should have been anywhere near like a open unrestricted weight winner. So that's why I'm just kind of really curious to see what it is. But I think at this point I'll have to just sit on my hands and just keep racing it, because in S minus restricted races he's just dominant, like just dominant.
And that's where, so I'll quickly finish on the breeding report, and then I do want to pivot to that, because that could have been a bullet point for tonight's conversation, because people are treating those differently. But like, if this horse stays S minus, I mean, that's basically in line with
What
5 of the boxes. But we think like, well, clearly its stamina and finish is probably at the S or higher level, even potentially. Like, there's a scenario where maybe he bricked speed and these ones finished up, and who cares about lack of speed? And that would keep your global grade at an S minus, but you have the stats where you actually want them. So that would probably be my guess of what happened. But
that, or I was thinking just temper is like somehow S plus too or something like crazy, because he doesn't have many shitty races. He did have the one the other day on fast, which was 66 was his literal worst race he's ever raced on, and it was on fast. So that was interesting, but yeah, I mean, let's talk about the restricted, because it can be talked about in so many different aspects of the game right now. And I feel like we all kind of knew that it was going to play into whatever the current meta was. We were told it's going to start, working its way out. We had that blog, and I don't know that we've seen that yet. I know it said by a certain season, but I think that said season 8. So we're 10 days away.
It's either 7 or 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we're 10 days away. Don't feel like we're anywhere close. Maybe we are. Maybe they just have kept it under wraps with whatever benchmarking thing they were supposed to come up with.
I think if you're going to do that one, that's one you want to be constantly talking about. So yes, they could tell us it was in a blog. You knew this was coming. We told you when it was coming. But I feel like that's something like almost like weekly, or at least bi-weekly, you have to be saying like,
right. And selfishly, right? Like I just talked about how I'll keep racing this horse, and I can just keep entering him in S minus restricted and just mopping the floor. Like if that retire window goes away, and then all of a sudden the phase out just hits out of nowhere, and it's like, hey, we put in a blog, but there was no reminders or no whatever. Like that's where I think the team needs to kind of step up in terms of reiterating some stuff. They've done it before with countless other things where it would just help to get in front of it and be communicating it. So yeah, hopefully that's thrown out there well in advance instead of like day one.
Yeah, because I mean, you just look at like, I mean, you were complimenting Ted for buying a lot of S minus Colson. I certainly don't think he paid bad prices for a lot of things. Like,
no, not while stimmies are out there. Like,
Mr. B more than,
yeah, if you can race something for 3 seasons, you're going to come out positive if you're selling Crown.
And we're normally trying to not be holding on to them, because every season we'll welcome 30 plus horses to the track and breed more every season going forward as well. So if we've got them, we'll use them for a little bit maybe, but it's just as easy for us to get them claimed as it is for me to try to sell them and change the prices to make sure that they remain competitive. Like win a little bit in claimers, and if someone grabs it from you, more power to them. And I know that's how Ted got a lot of the colts from us. Some of the fillies he'd bought from us when we scrolled through, those were listed, and those were listed like a day or two after the season had started. And for those listening and looking for horses, I very much plan to do the same, probably right away the Monday that the season opens, so the 23rd. I finally have the day off, so I'll probably try to stream our horse reveals, our retirements, and then even some thought process on what gets listed and maybe what the appropriate prices are there. But to stay on S minuses for a second is, I mean, I think the other point to it is, yeah, it's a good racing meta now. Well, you've got restricted races there, and some of the allowances work well because of the global grade, and they get a 3-pound handicap against a lot of those S's from time to time. But I think what has been interesting as well is where people are choosing to race them. So like Superman, you don't even really bother to race S minus restricted races all that often, it doesn't seem. And
it depends.
I know Sowers is a big believer in racing up in class. I know he does it a lot with A pluses as well. If my horse is a S minus, I think the first thing I'm looking for is an S minus restricted race. And that doesn't mean I don't want them to go away or don't think they should go away. I just think that that's the most conducive field for that horse, even if the horse could win against S's. So we had one claim last night we can talk about by Gooch that was an S minus. Yep. But it really never raced graded races, and we'll see how it does next week. I think we'll definitely see how it does next week. But if I can race S minus restricted races, why race it up? Especially since normally we have horses that are looking at the S level to race anyways, and I don't like racing multiple horses together. But kudos to you and Sowers for racing competitively.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the point that I was gonna make is when you have a lot of similar graded horses in your stable, it just made sense for me to push him up. I still race him in some as well, and then let the second tier of them try to take down those, and then the bottom tier in claimers. So I kind of have a ton of S minuses, and since Superman was like the one that could actually hold his own, definitely would throw him in there as like two entrants in the same races with the S minus. So it was more so distance, looking for that right distance, and then instead of going down to like 8 or 7 furlongs with Superman, just to get an S restricted race or S minus restricted race, I would bump him up. So I definitely hit some of them. I definitely will hit more of them in his later years as he's peak. Plus, and I really wanted to kind of decide what kind, like really truly like size him up to know if like he could race this week, or if I was going to need to race him and try to take, steal some other G1s during the week while everyone was chasing the qualifiers, that type of stuff. So a lot of moving parts there, but yeah, I think
what's hard with Superman in particular is your distance preference is the longer distance races too. So even if you would have thought like, well, maybe I'll just farm graded stakes and avoid the qualifiers, there is, I think, a lot of strategy that some people play with those types of scenarios. I think what's got to become more common as maybe like the best strategic move is once you've qualified your horse, like you got your win, basically that's all you need, right? If all the races are now only 17-point races, they used to vary in point totals all the way up to
right. You could lose your spot real quick because there was like one that was worth double.
But now if you win the first race of the week, then you can race the graded stakes races that aren't qualifiers and let the other horses earn their spot in the major for that week. And once another horse qualifies, maybe they're going to do the same thing, so it can work against you too. But I still think you're going to on average find softer races in the non-qualifiers than in the qualifiers itself. So where Superman prefers longer distance, you probably just race the longer distance race regardless of if it's a qualifier or not. But you couldn't probably benefit from a G1 that wasn't a qualifier that was, say, a 6 furlong race. Like that's
and I did that again, and I thought about it, but I had enough other horses that definitely weren't qualifier material that were able to race those. I think I won 3 or 4 G1 or grades this week with horses that I typically had been putting in claimers or things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, he definitely prefers the long. He's got some of the fastest actual times, for 3-year-olds. So fun little exercise, and I wish a lot more people would kind of grasp that this overall grade, while Ian has definitely said it's not going anywhere, and I think it does help a lot from a new person standpoint, like at least puts your brain right to something to look at and understand like kind of what kind of horse it is. But like that's all it really is. Like it just we've seen these reveals now. We're only going to get to see more. You can have an A horse with an S plus. You can have an S minus with a B. Like these inbreeds, things like that, where it's, you know, people are like, oh, they're still good horses. It's like, I mean, they probably have one or two stats that really suck, and the overall grade just means nothing. So, there's a lot in play there, and then the weights is something that hopefully they're going to get rid of, but only if, you know, hopefully to replace it with something that's better.
Yeah. Looking back at last night, and I guess staying on S minuses for a bit here. So we entered this in the Board Ape. Was from Ape, which is the second rarest Astro LDF filly. And then Shawnee Bear was a common option. I thought maybe Shawnee Bear would only be available like that for one season. Had I known it would have always remained there, maybe I wouldn't have gone there in the first season. But we did. And at the time, I was super disappointed that you take a S 18.5 and an S minus, like what, 24 or something like that, and you stay in S minus, and then you get a colt. Like it was like the worst beat we had on the first reveal of foals. But it ended up being a very good racer. The record's probably not as great as it should be because I just normally race my horses. So it has never lost between 9 and 11 furlongs. I'm sure Rollo noticed that as well.
Yep. I talked to him a little bit. that was a key contributor to, I think, claiming it.
But to my point is, so gray dots would mean restricted stakes, green is claiming, and then red is allowance. It's really only run allowances and restricted stakes. I ran one graded stakes race with 2 graded stakes races with it, and that was it. So that goes back to my comment of, well, why would I race this in graded stakes races if I can race it in S minus restricted? And certainly when you look at 9 and 11 furlong LDF with fast, like it's running 77, 75. Like that's really good, even if it's an S minus. Like to your point, it doesn't really matter too much. It's not put up in 80, I don't think, but there's 2 77s at 9 furlongs. High
70s gets the job done. There's not many horses that are at least not consistently yet. Maybe they will as we get closer to peak. We think peak is probably 4.5. That's what Gen Zeros were, 4.5 to 5.5. So unless you have something that's truly a really early peaker at this point, I think we still will see some higher fleets. But for now, like high 70s is great.
But that was, I mean, it's something I thought a lot about entering that race. Part of it was I was totally content with it getting claimed. And my thought process on that was, this is Cosmic Wood. It is the oldest offspring of Morning Wood. Obviously, any 3-year-old would be the oldest. It'd be the first wave. So this was back when not many people hit Morning Wood. I think it's one of only 2 colts from that first window. Cosmo being
horse, yeah.
Cosmo being the second rarest, Ziggy, regardless of gender. So when we bought this horse, it was bought from the standpoint of, I haven't used Morningwood yet. If I haven't used Morningwood yet, I'm 6 seasons behind in breeding on using Morningwood. I have not used a Ziggy yet either. So again, am I 6 seasons behind on using a Ziggy? So if I buy something that's all of a sudden 3 years old, have I caught right back up? And if I've used neither of them, can I use this as a colt and use them both at the same time? Because I don't need to use Morningwood and Ziggy separately if I can use them together. So it'll be a question of, what does this look like when it reveals? Certainly looks like a sprinter. That's not something I'm trying to focus on. It's not a great racing horse. That's fine.
So let me.
It's not something I'm trying to.
Is that because you expect the purse to keep growing on these Saturday races? We've seen the free entries come through that maybe do allow something for sprinters. Because outside that race and the week of qualifiers, they basically have the same earning potential, no? Or are you saying it carries over into the breeding barn and things like that as well?
Well, I think it's a breeding barn thing. It's a in-house discount on a Morningwood breed, because at the end of the day, when you looked at a breeding report between since Rollo claimed a horse last night, we'll use his Scott Street, which is a Ziggy, and a breeding report of Apollo, which is
I was
our
meaning more
Scuba.
so
They're
like
not.
not
They're not.
targeting a sprinter. Like, is that
Oh,
strictly? Yeah. In terms of like not wanting to basically make any sprinters, because like I've kind of had the opposite thought, like from a macro level, I guess. Like, it sucks when all your horses prefer the exact same race, right? So why wouldn't you try to mix in some sprinters, especially with some of these free rolls, things like that? I'm not saying it's wrong or anything like that. I'm just like trying to understand, because maybe I've been thinking about it different. So like, you have a ton of horses, so I'm kind of surprised that you wouldn't try to take some and just be the best at everything.
Yeah, and keep in mind you saw the Board Ape racing chart. It's not like I was racing it at the correct distance no matter what, anyways.
Right.
I guess the defensible part of my logic is exactly this, and that if the Colts for Astral, they do have some stamina, whether that's Dozier or Yukon, but in general, there's not that many solid Astral Colts at LDF to begin with. Morningwood's a unique one that prefers to sprint based on the revealed stats. Rose of Zion is weirdly unique and that prefers to sprint. Then you got the Ziggies that prefer to sprint for sure, and the Astros that prefer to run longer distance. And then that's your S population, and maybe even your S minus population, because everything else prefers to sprint at LDF. So this is separate from RTF. It's unique. It would almost probably be the inverse of RTS potentially. But the logic is not even just the Derby distance and the qualifiers and the majors being, call it 8 to 11 or 9 to 11 furlongs. If everything prefers to sprint, and I can make a modest horse that prefers to run longer distance, even if it's not a Derby horse, even if it's an A+.
Okay, so
my distance preference is going to trump.
Yeah, so I'm not in left dirt, so I didn't realize that. So that's fair to point out. Hopefully somebody else caught on that. I do own one left dirt horse, and it actually does prefer long. Well, so I didn't realize that others didn't. But actually, now that you say it out loud, it makes sense, because the fields aren't overly strong, and there's not a lot. I'm racing the same 6 horses daily almost at 10 plus furlongs left dirt, whether it's soft or firm. I've actually found that it doesn't. I just enter it no matter what, because there's outside of Morning Diamond, Eddie's S Plus, there's no, like, it's really pretty wide open. So I'm actually kind of excited for next week's race. Like, It's definitely probably a 1-horse race. Like, it's Morning Diamonds to lose without doing any research. I'm talking out of my ass right now. Is that more of a, we had the first Kentucky Derby, so everyone didn't retire right away issue, and so we kind of had some, like, a 1-month lag with left dirt? Or is it truly, like you said, because of the way the 1-on-1s worked?
Well,
at the 3-year-old level,
it's probably more the latter, because where you would need to add into that is, like, GVG's got 2 S minus Colts. One is Hercules. The other one is Meme God, I think. And those are like 22 total boosts, S minuses. So those, if you were using like the RTF analogy, those would be like your Mercury. They would be your Born to Runs, et cetera, et cetera. And those definitely prefer to sprint. So it's not just at the S level you're seeing it.
It's okay.
And then you had the first season you talked about, like Apollo, Pellner Fields are your scuba choices. Talk Derby to me is another top scuba choice. Again, at the S level, I think an S minus or 2 retired, and there might have been 1 S that was not that great that retired as well. So you have most things that would provide a better chance. Again, there's range of outcomes in all of these breeding, and that's why when I'm saying I'm trying to target a longer distance anyways, like at the end of the day, I'm still willing to use Morningwood, because if I take 25 cracks at the apple, like one might actually get a really good longer distance roll. So I'm fine taking that risk.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it was the latter of the two options you gave, that the horses you would have bred with for Kentucky Derby distances continued the race because Shawnee Bear, which another S minus, which also prefers the sprint.
Really,
correct. And at that point, if everybody had already bred with Shawnee Bear, including my own fillies, then I don't need to retire my horses. I can keep them on the track. But yeah, so about a week ago, a little less than that, we bought this from GVG for $225. You pay $240 after fees. So when I'm looking at that,
I would have bought that, and I don't have any fillies to use. I feel like that would have been a good buy just to race.
He's got another one. I don't know if it's sold or not. Yeah, I guess we can try to find it at the same time. It'd be very Stens-like fashion.
Yeah, I'm looking to move. Like I mentioned it earlier. Once you get enough horses all the same, it's kind of a hassle. I don't know how you're doing it at 3 different archetypes, but like I have so much of the same shit that I want to start trading some of those pieces for different stuff. I just don't know enough, or who owns what, or what. So it's a lot of work to kind of get caught up to speed. So some good alpha there by you for the left dirt piece, and that leaves the other two. I don't know if you could convince me to get in on right dirt. That shit is so competitive. Like there's 3 others. I'll stick with those maybe.
Yeah, Rollo, you didn't miss a ton of it. What you already knew, probably even better than me, is I wasn't paying attention to distance when I was entering the horse. I just said it was a good horse. I'm going to race it in S- restricted stakes race. And, you know, even if it's not supposed to race a 5 furlongs, at least I'm getting a race that day, and it's getting second place. Like, no harm, no foul. But yeah, certainly you're targeting these distances for next week. I would continue to race the horse. I wouldn't retire it. But I think it was a good buy by you. But where we pick up the conversation is if I was able to buy Cosmic Wood, which again was a Morning Wood cover, which was I think $90K at the time, and I got that for $225 from an Ass 101 Ziggy, I'm comfortable letting this horse go for $200K, even if it is a good racer. And what's weird about that is I think Ultraviolet is a much worse racer, clearly. Like, here's your Ricky Bobby horse. It doesn't really have, I mean, it probably has the right distance preference, but it's never even hit the board unless it wins. And it's raced at all distances, so there's probably not much of a fluke there. But I was not willing to enter this horse into that claiming race yesterday, which even though, I mean, Bored Ape was the wrong distance, fine. This would have been a better distance, correct. But seeing the 9 of 9 preference and knowing all the preference Nazis out there, I suspect that this is going to be a useful piece, much more useful than 200K. And where Bored Ape is from 1 of 1 on the filly side, which is pretty unique. This is from 0 1 of 1s, stays an S minus. So I think this is a pretty useful breeding piece, even if I'm not necessarily going to use it myself. And I'll probably try to throw it in some softer qualifiers next week just to see, but I'm really not expecting too much. Rollis is going to race a 4-year-old. Yeah, I think you at least go through 4 and see if it slows down at all. You could argue you should maybe go through 5, because keep in mind you're never going to have horses necessarily older than that competing with it. And if the peak is what, 4.5, like, so if you're racing the 5-year-old season, the horses below you are 4, so they're technically normally not at peak yet, right? You would a 4-year-old peak halfway through the season on a, if we're taking them very literally about peak age. And I know horses have different paces up and paces down from peak, but if that's the global average, then I think racing the 5-year-old season for a lot of horses is actually a reasonable approach as well.
Yeah, I just pulled up the times on Gap data, and it looks like Bored Ape has the 5th fastest 10 furlong at LD. Of those, one of the above is a filly that's retired, so a top 4 time of remaining horses that are 3. So could be live next week.
if he wins it, good for him. There's no better publicity than selling a horse too cheap or.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, Morning Diamond is basically like at least half a second better than everybody else. Like that horse is just fucking insane. But it could still show out a little bit.
For sure.
We thought the same thing about Can Pork Chop. So those 20 horse fields, those 3 horse fields just are kind of unpredictable, right? Like shit happens. Except at Gen Zero, where everybody just won twice at least.
That is a little bit unique and strange. We had a couple of the 2-time winners for sure. So, the next bullet point I had, and again, if there's questions in the chat, drop them in. I'd prefer to answer those than just ramble on stuff. I guess we'll skip to bullet point 3, and we can try to goad someone into doing it on stream. It was a placeholder for someone to make a splashy purchase before or during the stream, so we could talk about those. I think maybe the most unique thing that happened in the last 2 days is actually the claim that Rollo made for $200K for an S- Colt.
That's definitely the first one we've had of those, right? The after darks that were really high. Like nobody's actually there hasn't been anything close. So that was cool to see. And I think the more horses we get, like people are going to get way more comfortable entering good shit in there, and it's fun. Like, I mean, you and I both would totally, benefit the more high dollar claimers they put in. But like, it's so fun. Like, I've lost shit that I didn't want to lose, that I feel like are good horses, but like, it's still a really fun way to enter and play. Like, I actually am more excited to check those results than like a G1. Like, did I win this race? Also, did I lose my horse? Like, it's just a fun experience, and it really does give value to those colts that I think desperately need. I know I was on a crusade there for a while for the Philly only claimers, and I'm glad they yoinked them back off. But like, the colts need that win, and seeing them and seeing movement. God bless Ted for being the majority of those, maybe, but like, I don't think there's really bad buys there as we still race through this stimulus.
What's your downsides? So if he claims something for these S-minuses that he got from us, like 75K, 83K, what are you losing? Like worst case
claimer. It's so fun. Like, it really is. Like,
and you probably win the 50K claimer, and if you get 10 horses in the race, you get 50K for the horse that got claimed, but you're also probably getting 20K for winning the race as well.
It really is. It's great, and I wish there was a little bit more cadence to him. Like, the allowances are okay, but like the weights are just arbitrary, and dang, I just see that. That's not a good one. Yeah, definitely don't want to put fillies in them. They're not priced.
I was talking to Lacey that one morning about not being willing to sell LTS fillies because we're woefully behind at LTS, and that's when she reminded me I was about to lose one in an hour's time, and I think it had like 33 claims or something for a 100K claimer had 30 claims or something on it. So
I put
that was it feels bad, but
yep. So that happens, unfortunately. But yeah, I think the claimers, like, and I think we've hit out on both points of that blog that we was supposed to be coming to season 8. We haven't really heard much on that front, so maybe we'll be surprised in 10 days. I do hope we maybe get an update before. Maybe somebody wants to poke fib or something, and see if that's coming, because it is important to know. Like, ideally you would know 90 days in advance, because you're breeding towards metas, and
3 months,
you can get screwed pretty quick. Like, with that being said, I still can't believe how quickly seasons go. I don't know if you feel the same, but I feel like we just finished breeding, and now here we are, like, the 3rd championship is tomorrow. We're gonna have a week for the Kentucky Derby, and we're gonna be like, I feel like we were kind of gonna be like, oh, it's so long, but like, I almost wish.
I agree with.
I almost wish.
I agree with Rollo. I think.
Do you?
maybe you have better horses than I have, or you have more patience for your stuff. It's like, okay, I raced this, it lost 7 times. Like if you want to go flame some more Sten's horses, I've got an S that hasn't hit the board in 7 tries. I'm just done racing this horse. Like, do we want to retire Rose on stream? Like we've tried it different distances.
I haven't gotten
I
there
even
yet.
hit the board. So
I'm guessing it's
can I
a filly.
retire it or no?
I'm guessing.
No, I know, but so this was one of the ones we took to Walter White. Like all of our Walter White breeds have been bad.
Really?
Bad.
It's like I feel like a lot of these
really
three-year-olds have actually been really good from Walter.
Well, they probably were RTS, staying RTS.
Yeah.
So then you at least have a better chance of keeping a distance preference. Because keep in mind, like Walter White would have had stamina and finish. And the RTFs had start, so you're just making a mutt. So like maybe longer term it works out. And I still defend doing it that early in the process. But I think we're seeing
because it ends up being where those are making the best horses.
Distance preference that it doesn't matter. But
yeah. So
can I retire this, or is it too early to retire? Can I retire as a 2-year-old? I don't know. Do we do this on stream? Is it possible?
It's 3, right? You can't retire a 2-year-old.
Like I said, seasons are too long. I agree with Bolo.
See, I guess I haven't given up.
Worthless.
I think I have like 28 raceable horses or something stupid, and I'm trying to get most of them in. I don't know. Like, I think you and I are very clearly on maybe opposite sides of holding crown, but when you can amass it at the levels that I've been able to, it becomes addicting at a good price, right? Like if you can win some races, it's been fun. So I still think they go by fast because like I was looking today and there are some horses that have kind of fallen behind in terms of number of races, things like that. But I'm never like truly dying for the next crop to come and to retire my current crop. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way. Peep says too slow. They won't be soon. Peep, you have 4 horses. Of course they're fucking slow. Like maybe if you actually tried to, I don't know, keep some stuff or branch out or race at any kind of volume. You have like 6 people that have your password. Like at least give each person 1 horse. Like what are we doing? What are you doing over there? You're not moderating in PFL. Like you got plenty of time to race some colts. Go make some claims, man.
I just assume him and Kamish sit in suites and smoke cigars. I mean, one's in Europe, England.
I mean,
and
seriously,
wherever Kamish
I saw it
is.
the other day, and I couldn't believe it. They have plenty of fillies.
That it is a natural segue, not just to focus on Kamish because it's fun to pick on him. But we are 10 days, 9+ days, to season 8, which means we'll get foals dropped from this season of breeding.
Shockwave babies.
We'll get to retire the 2-year-olds if we so choose. And this will be the first time that we'll reveal foals from Gen 1. So we'll have some Gen 1 fillies that have bred again. I could pull up an example or 2 here just to show. But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Not because it's Shockwave. Like, I think if you missed the last stream that I did, which was like 7 years ago at this point, I did a very good job of like side-by-side comparing Shockwave and Primetime, with the conclusion being like you could tell which had like the higher radial within a stack grade, but they were so close together. So I really was surprised to see so many people use Shockwave this season when I thought the horses were demonstrably the same, and Primetime hadn't really seen that kind of volume without kickbacks, and maybe there was a ton of kickbacks involved in the Shockwave stuff too. But the other part of the Shockwave thing that makes me really surprised is I noticed this, and I don't even compete in RDF, probably will never compete in RDF, and I know I got to scroll to like 60 to get to Kamish's stable, but like it was so obvious to me he has a better horse coming. So for everybody that hit Shockwave, apparently they did it because of the stamina and the temper. but he's going to have hot sauce, which I'm assuming he's going to return around and retire again. Because heaven forbid you race a horse. And this is another primetime breed. So everybody that hit Shockwave, are they really just going to hit hot sauce again? And then you've probably already hit primetime. You've hit Shockwave, and now you've hit hot sauce. Like eventually that demand dries up a little bit, right? Once you've used something, like once you have the bloodline, you probably don't need it a ton. So kudos to for making a ton of money with Shockwave. And to my point, I don't even know if it was warranted, because I would have just waited for hot sauce one season longer.
One
I think
season
hot sauce will have one.
But
no.
I think
hot sauce will have a good
also,
season, but I'd be
I think
curious what
there's-
Shockwave does and what he drops. Go ahead.
I think
sorry.
this season, though, I think there's a handful of other non-commish held primetime stuff that can hit the stud barn too. I think Miami Right Dirt has an S plus. That's primetime that can hit the barn. I think I saw that he posted that on Twitter, that it will be retiring. And maybe GVG, does he have something? I can't remember. Maybe his were Phillies. I can't remember.
He didn't get an S. He didn't get an S plus out of primetime, at least not
Gotcha.
initially.
Not an S plus.
Monologue
Gotcha.
for a little bit. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So, yeah, with Right Dirt, I'm too big of a pussy to go over there now at this point. So anyone else that's brave enough. I mean, it's crazy strong having the two S26s. It was very unique to Right Dirt, and just the way that the preferences ran out. In rarity, they just are stronger Gen Zeros across the board. So, I'm, curious to see how that plays out. Like, are they going to plateau, or there's no way that the first S minus isn't Right Dirt firm. It would shock me.
Minus, you mean?
Yeah, sorry. What did I say? S minus, SS minus.
S minus.
SS minus will definitely probably be here, and it's good for the game. Like that's the one thing I'll say about it. Like, these horses are a fucking arms race. There's been huge money thrown on that side, like, because the demand is there. There's a high population on top of them being super strong. Like, I think it's good for the game in terms of an economy standpoint. It's a little frustrating as a right turf owner to see some similar graded stuff that like doesn't move. You can see two Gen Zeros with two 1s and it's a filly, and it's like boom, 700K sale. And it's like, but it's not rare, it's not whatever, but it's a filly, and you basically have to get one because then you're not as worried about the 1/1s because there is the prime time out there. There is the unique one, strongest horse that doesn't include a 1/1. So it's call it a little bit of jealousy, maybe, if anything, of Right Dirt. But yeah, I'll have no part of it myself. But I am looking to branch out elsewhere. I don't know where it will be yet. Left Dirt sounds fun. Also sounds really expensive. So it really just comes down to biting the bullet on cost, I guess, somewhere.
I think one area that, and again, this is one of the three we compete in, so consider this a bias statement. All cards on the table. I don't even compete at the top, is LTS, but that's what makes it interesting. Like, the top of LTS is pretty boring, right? Can pork chop.
Yeah.
K Kirk's got all that jazz, which was really good as a Gen 1 racer. But if you just assume you're never going to compete at the top, and like the next wave is all at S minus right now, can you buy an S minus LTS for the same price you can buy an S minus RTF or an S minus RDF? Mm-hmm. And if you're buying an S minus RDF, I agree with you. You're so fucking far behind. And that doesn't mean there aren't races for S minus horses, whether that's allowances or great restricted races or whatever exists going forward. But at LTS, that S minus is not that far behind. I don't know the pricing. I know I'm not selling any, which is why I guess I can advocate for it a little bit in good faith. But just to your point of like, could you look somewhere else and find a better opportunity? RDS is weird because it's got all the RDF spillover. the Doc breeds have been good, but where do you go after you've hit Doc in Night Saturn, those types of things? So you already had RTF, RTS. So that really only leaves left dirt or left turf, and I think LTS is interesting.
It's probably definitely the way to go. You're right. If there's any place that's going to stall out for a bit, it certainly is left turf.
Because all the S pluses now are 2 1-of-1s. Most of the S's now are 2 1-of-1s.
Yeah, and you're basically going back to a non S20 either. It's what is Pluto or Mars?
Wow, which one?
Scuba.
I've got all three.
Yeah, which one is Scuba?
Mars, I think. I
Yeah,
don't even
so
know.
like, what is he, an S20, or is he like more like an S16 or 17?
It's like 8. No, it's 18.5 is the top, and that is the top.
I knew you couldn't get top with a Scuba, so I knew it wasn't a 20. I didn't know if it was.
There's 3 of these. Hans has got the best on the rarity. This is the second rarest, and then Soul Snake's got the third rarest, which is always priced the best, obviously.
Yeah. So you basically say all that jazz had to hit one of those 3, right? You were referencing K-Kirk's.
Or you're moving back. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're basically almost the same thing with like could happen in right turf as well. Like you're either hitting Churro,
and that's why we did Walter White though, to bring that in,
right?
Because that's where we have.
You're either sacrificing preferences, or you're basically going down a little bit until something catches up. So,
I think we'll retire this, and it's not very good, and it's technically an RTS, but anything that's already used. You can anything that's used Big A or DePoison, but I can use this with most of our other stuff, and anything that's used Jupiter before, or anything that's
your Hazel plus Jupiter breed can hit that.
One. So I think this is one of the Colts we'll actually use. Seeing Gooch's comment in the chat about the horse that Tom from Blue Elder bought with the Primetime Baby in it. I think we've probably talked about it before. I really don't know enough about RDF to talk what price makes sense. My comments on RDF that I can comfortably stand behind are like supply and demand of breeding, and like when inbreeding becomes a concern. That's where I can say if you've already hit prime time and you are going to maybe hit hot sauce next season, then you probably shouldn't have hit shockwave this past season, or vice versa. Like eventually you've got the primetime breed that you needed in your bloodline, and you can keep hitting it because it's the best piece. But at some point, is price not a function of your decision-making process? And would you rather not hit Pasture Ass or Wasatch or whatever, Zeus, Ace King, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, for 20% of the breeding fee of anything that we've got out of Commission's Barns? And that's not to say people can't afford it. Like, if you can sell an S Colt for, especially when it's going to have buco preferences to it, and the preference Nazis love that shit, like, you're not going to lose money on that. And I'm not saying breed cheap because you can make more money. I'm saying I don't know if the difference between the horse outcomes is enough to warrant the difference in the prices. And then once you've used primetime once,
they're priced to where there's a chance if you roll a Colt, you don't get it. It's actually a fight to get back your money, right? Where like Pasture Ass this past season was $50. It doesn't matter if you get a Colt, you're going to be able to survive. So again, but that's good. Like I said, the one thing I think I said while you were away, I don't know if you heard, was like, it might not have made sense with hot sauce coming or something like that, but I do think it's good for the economy to like prove out as a concept that like the arms race that is at Right Dirt, like there's big money to be made, and like if you want to get there, you can't fall behind. It kind of flywheels a little bit. We'll see if other places follow suit as we get some outliers, but it really was a perfect storm with Right Dirt being, 1, super populated, 2, having all the options you never really have to worry about inbreeding, and 3 just having just the strongest horses in general. I gotta go with my dog out there. He's being an asshole. So
I hear that. I hear
Yep.
that. You're good. We'll look at to Rolo's comment, which was initially from Peeb, which I think I'd heard at the time as well, about the white faces showing up at LD. And where I just showed like that Goat's Head Soup one, or no, Goat of Chemistry, which is the Walter White, and Goat, which was the first and second place finishers of the first right turf major, like both really accomplished racers, both S's, made a not great offspring. And that could have been variance. I think it's what we talked about earlier, where RTF had start and then RTS had finish as opposed to stamina, and it just kind of making a mutt of stats, and therefore anything that had better stat array or breeding strengths into strengths, i.e. RTF and RTF, ends up being a better horse, or RTS and the RTS ends up being a better horse. So where I think there might be a white face at LDF from Primetime. Oh, it didn't get the white face. This was the attempt. Crossfire. It's a Colt, which is probably what he wanted. But it did not get the white face. It is from Primetime. It is from Delta. So, like, this is a stepping stone piece, not dissimilar from the one I just showed you, Go to Chemistry with Walter White and Goat. And if that horse struggled and all I did is get like a 0 star on one of these 3, I just don't see how this horse isn't going to have the same challenges. And where soft and firm is variable based on the weather and yielding being neutral, every horse is left or right. That's non-negotiable. We're not Zed. We don't run straight. I think this horse is not going to be very good, which is fine. That's going to fit his style of racing a horse twice and being done with it. Where he maybe has a little bit of a chance is the Astro has pretty good start speed stats, and Primetime as a horse, I feel like was a reasonably good sprinter, even if the stats didn't make it look like that. I don't know. Again, I don't know RDF. Yeah. So seemed to have the best results at 6 furlongs. So if Deltas call it a 6 furlong horse and Primetime's a 6 furlong horse, where I said Go to Chemistry struggled by taking high start and washing it away and taking high finish and washing it away, at least maybe the distance preference aligns on these 2 horses better. I guess that's the thought process behind the horse. But it's a horse that I'm going to watch very closely. But yeah, we're 2 seasons away from, well, I'll call it a season and 10 days away from seeing it run once and then park the rest of the time and then listed in the breeding barn for $90,000. What else do we got here? I have an inkling that turn preference is more important than surface preference at the championship distances. Yeah, I mean, we asked like way back in the day when you could get comments on some of these or get nuggets that you could take away and chew on a little bit of. Is one of the 3 either right, left, dirt, turf, firm, soft? Does it trump the others in importance? And it seemed like if you were going to have one trumpet, I actually think you should have done soft or firm, because if the matched horses were the ones that gave soft or firm and the one of ones gave left or right, it would have been a perfect spot to give the matched horses the benefit and say fast, good matter more than left or right. But I don't know. If I had to guess now, I would say they're probably all equally weighted. I mean, anybody that's played all 3 of the betas has known that preferences were probably the strongest at the start of racing in a beta, and they continuously got worse and less important. There was like one brief reprieve in there because we used to not have fast and good. It was basically just firm or soft or yielding. So once you get that like 5 degrees of racing, then when you got fast and sloppy, then it seemed like it mattered a decent bit again. But then subsequent to that, they were kind of reined in a little bit, and distance preference seems to trump all. I thought Ian hinted in the past that the more turns in a race, the more important that the turn preference is. So this was a right Paul type of comment, I believe. And what he said in this context was preferences matter the longer the distance of the race, but I think that's all of the preferences. So yes, more turns could, if that was a specific quote, then maybe I would agree with you there. I'm not going to state that as fact, but will state as fact that I do remember Wright Paul suggesting that preferences matter more the longer the race is. So a 4 furlong race is less dependent upon the preferences that a horse had than a 12 furlong race. And I think that checked out in the results we had in a lot of the betas, especially when you start talking about horses like Opus One, which is the LTS horse out of Eddie's barn. And then you saw LDF horses win at LTF and LTS even, which would suggest that, yeah, because it's a 4 furlong race, and yes, because LDF horses have a better stat profile for a sprint, they can overcome the preferences. And if the preferences matter less in a 4 furlong race than a 12 furlong race, that also checks out. But that's been a long time, and we know Wright Paul is not with us anymore, so I'll pour one out for Wright Paul. But that I do remember very explicitly being stated, that preferences mattered more the longer the furlong, or more the furlongs you had. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either. We're just speculating at that point, which I try to stay away from a little bit. But the other bullet point, and we'll catch RVA up to speed because I don't want to be on forever tonight, is talking about what you're going to do for the next 10 days. So we did start and then got on a Stens tangent and then segue as well. With like horses like Shockwave are going to be what I'm going to review. Now, I have no RDF. I will not have any RDF, but that still means that Shockwave is worth my review because, one, we have such a rich sample of what is used prime time and what is used Shockwave. They both have the same amount of preferences. They both have the same grade. They both basically had the same breeding reports. Like we walked through that in the last stream. So if I think those two horses are the same, or more or less the same, what outcomes has Primetime produced versus what outcomes did Shockwave produce? And I understand like Shockwave is only used for one season, but we've been told that there's no breeding peak age. So we have a sample of 20 Shockwave breeds that we can compare and contrast with, call it, 40 Primetime breeds. So I'm going to look at horses like that to see does it seem like there was more variance breeding with the Gen 1 colt? And that's like the first thing I'm going to look at on Monday after I stream to try to figure out, do I have any indication or even a gut hunch that breeding with Gen 1 is optimal for any reason? Like I think if the betas hold true, Gen Zeros were consistent. And if you wanted to move up over time, yes, it was slow, but you went with the Gen Zeros because your outcome was more reliable. And breeding with a Gen 1 provided more upside, but more often than not, you lost something and or you introduced yourself to more inbreeding concerns over time. But if there's a reason for me to believe that there is more upside, if Primetime is made, 7 S pluses and 25 tries, did Shockwave make 14 and 25 tries, or what does that ratio look like? And obviously you would have to pay attention to what fillies were used with each of those. Were better fillies used with Shockwave? My gut says yes, because in theory there should have been better fillies that existed when Shockwave was ready to breed, because you would have all the Gen 0 options at your disposal. And you would have had crop 1 fillies, which in theory could have already included an S plus. So that's what I want to look at, is what Gen 1 colts produced, if there's any anecdotal takeaways. So I'm going to try to find a list of 5 to 6 that were the most commonly used colts and compare them to the initial sire itself. So in the Shockwave case, I'll compare that to what Primetime produced, so on and so forth. And then I think I'm still going to try to breed reasonably early in the week, because the other big variable this window is we're going to have more fillies to breed than we've had in prior windows, and that's going to continue every season going forward. So if it seems like Gen Zero is the obvious play, which I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but if it proves to be the obvious play or seems like it's the obvious play, then the Gen Zero supply is static for Colts, and the Philly population that would use them is growing every single window. So where it was always advantageous to wait to the very last second of the window, if at all possible, and wait for someone to drop their price to 4K to try to get some in-house breeds in. I think you're making now. There's still going to be options available to you, but you're taking a bigger risk each window that you wait. So I want to be mentally prepared to breed on Monday. Realistically, I won't necessarily breed everything, because if I'm going to breed with my own Gen 1 Colts, I'll probably try to race a lot of those Gen 1 Colts for the week. And as I think about this, last window when we streamed, we retired all of the fillies. I'll probably wait on some of the fillies this time around. We've actually got some decent ones. Last time, I don't think what we had was all that good. And while I'm adding these filters, this is going to be like the 45th reminder to the team that your age 0 only filter does not work. And it would be really nice if it worked in 10 days time. Yeah, like I said, Rose hasn't hit the board in 7 tries, raced a bunch of distances. Like, that horse doesn't need to race a single day into the next window. But Hazel, which is a Walter White one, that one's actually been pretty good. Princess Diana, which is a Walter White one, has been good. But this one is good in the way that Bored Ape was good, in that Diana was a 9 of 9 preference, S-, and it bred with an S. Like, it probably should have made an S. So if it's racing S- restricted races, is it good? Yes. Is it great? Probably not. Violet Shadows has actually been very good. With LDF, with Apollo. Like, that horse, I'll probably try to race for a while. This one as well, the Hazel one as well. But some of these, anything you name after Sage can't hit the board. So Sage Wisdom will get shut down immediately. Cry Me a River will probably play the Justin Timberlake song, because as much as they love my royalty-free music, I don't think our audience is ever going to be big enough to worry about getting in trouble using a little JT action. So probably half of these we can retire right away on Monday. But do you have any thoughts on what your plan is, Vijay?
So, kind of similar last season. I only kept, I sold way too many fillies really fucking cheap. They were priced right at the time, but I was on this crusade that, like, I don't need this many. I need to make some money back, like, whatever. So I have 6, I think, that are 2-year-olds right now. I have 4 3-year-olds, so I have 10 fillies now that go with the 26 or so Gen Zeros. So none of them are killers on the track. So last time I did retire 2 winners. One of these horses is good, I think. I'm excited to run some reports on the soft horses, so I'll probably retire all 3 of those earlier. They haven't raced as much, but 2 of those are scuba fillies at RTS, which is very uncommon. So probably go to like Mundo and Walter White's 1-1, one of each. I don't think either one will sell out, but so maybe I don't run it early. I don't know, like maybe they do sell out because there's so many more. Like, I'll probably just be monitoring those horses' stud counts. Right turf is unique. We haven't had a shockwave type horse. We haven't had anything retire that's better than the Gen Zeros yet. At soft.
Well, and I don't know that we're gonna for a while either. Because
no, I don't think we will either. Like, you don't have that prime time piece. You don't have a Morning Wood piece. You don't, like, it's just a different ball game, really. And LTS has it because there was a lot of not a lot, but like some 1-on-1s that made really good horses. But we had a couple S+ fillies from Right Turf Firm, the first, and I think Otani did not retire, and She's the Boss did, and she hit Churro. So in theory, that horse could stay firm or soft, but it probably goes to 0. And if he gets a colt, he'll have that first piece that hopefully can, get us some new stuff. But that's still 3 seasons away from hitting the barn. So yeah, the right turf is, I don't want to say behind, because it still seems that preferences matter a little bit more. I mean, we're seeing the downgrade, kind of come over and can beat some horses on preference. But it's a little nerve-wracking if we don't start hitting some wicks. It could possibly be like left behind, for lack of better technical terms. So yeah, I mean, if you held Jupiter, right, like you held the price up high, I say the one thing that was smart about the people that were in right turf is they didn't race to 0 or $50, whatever, for stud piece. And eventually they're going to get hit because, again, they're not getting passed. So the Born to Runs, those type of horses are going to get their 35 covers, and there's still going to be plenty of the mean as we get these more. I think I looked on Gap, and Right Turf has the most fillies of any. So Right Dirt Firm still has the most horses, but I'm pretty sure I saw that Right Turf Firm specifically has the most fillies of any archetype. So like that population is only going to continue to grow. And those horses should be rewarded pretty handsomely, because we are showing that, $500 isn't a risk, right? Like, it's not a risk to spend $500 to get a good horse. Like, I hit Jupiter for the first time last month. I'll probably hit him again, or if you hit Dirty Diana out there, like, we'll hit that. Like, early on, it made sense to kind of use some in-house stuff over better horses for some stables, things like that. But yeah, Right Turf is a big foe. Was like he's on. I see him on your screen now. I think he was the only new one to retire, and honestly just wasn't a good-looking horse. On paper, it looked like it could have been a cool, unique piece. It's got no one of one, but like the breeding reports just didn't really jump out at you.
No, the only reason I pulled this up is, so this is part 3 of things I'd like the team to fix in 10 days. Most important is in barn 0H filter does not work. Probably second most important longer term is the box and whiskers on your stats page for your individual horse on the website itself still doesn't work. And then the age filter on the breeding barn is inexplicably different for some reason. Every other page has youngest or oldest age. This one has max or min age, and it doesn't work even if you put the correct fillies in. So like this should filter all the 3-year-olds and get rid of the 7-year-olds. Doesn't work. And to prove what I was talking about here.
Yeah, the breeding barn is criminally too hard to use. The marketplace is
I just
criminally too hard to use. So like I want
to reveal my full and not know what the stack grades are based on what other 1-year-old horses they fall between. So this 0 and 0 should give me the foals that dropped today. It should give you the full of Ariat Dreams, the full of Fearless Lover.
So the workaround is name your horses, and then just type in full or whatever. But
I got so many horses in name.
If there is one thing I dislike about this game, it is naming my own horses. But yeah, no, I was going to bring it up. The stud finder is where I go. I will use that over. Again, haven't had the need because I'm mostly in Right Turf, and there literally has been no new options, so I don't have to like research at all. It sticks out like a sore thumb if there's a new horse, or I just know of it because I've raced it 100 times. But yeah, definitely use their tools. I'm looking forward to their Twitch stream. I know it's 8 a.m. Australian time. I have no fucking clue what time that is where I am. I'll be catching the replay.
Wasn't that the one they already did with Sours? They did the one with Sours.
Did it already happen? See, I don't even know. Like
I think it's because Australia's a day ahead.
Yeah, so I was working and didn't see it. Yeah,
already happened.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll check that tomorrow. That'll be good.
Shout out to Gabone. Maybe the first time I've seen you in the chat here, but I've certainly shouted out your products on every stream previously. I would use your tools for the reveal, but the problem is I want to actually reveal. I want to not know my horse's grade, gender, and preferences. So until we can do that on gap data, I won't be able to do that. But if the team could just get the 0-year-old filter to work, then we'd still be in a good spot. So yeah, gap data is really good for. I use it most for using it as like census data of how many horses of a certain type of thing exist. I know a lot of people are starting to use it for speed. I guess my only caution on using things for speed is use it as a data point. Don't use it as a solve for anything. A lot of the people that are here from the other game where you would have sample sizes that were meaningful and you didn't have changes in the weather and you didn't have track condition changes. And you really, realistically, at least when I play the game, didn't have that many horse molds. Where here, I don't know that there's particularly a horse mold. There are horses that prefer longer distances, but the way that the odds played in the other game, there was like 5 distinct molds, at least early in the game. And there's an old stream of me out there from May of last year outlining of 2021, outlining those 5. So you had so many things to narrow the scope of like the variables in Zed. We don't have that here. So if you look at speed, you had one great time. One great time in Zed meant that maybe you had high variance, or even finishing 3 seconds behind the field almost assured you had high variance if you felt like you should have competed there based on odds or what have you. We don't have that here. You're never going to have a meaningful sample size on an individual horse. So you would have to take what you're seeing on speed as a data point, what the fleet figure is a data point, the competition, the field size, the race stakes, whether or not there was weight. Then you have to figure out what peak age is. So eventually over time, maybe you can start solving for some of these variables. If the peak age is an averaging of the 2 parents, or peak age is passed down from the sire, like we don't know any of those things yet. So like speed is nice, but it's not solving for anything yet. And I think it can lead to false conclusions just as much as it can help you, unless you only treat it as a data point. So just getting caught back up here, and we'll probably wrap here in the next 10 minutes. If you got some questions, bring them up. True, use caution, or use caution with speed, use speed with caution. Good horses can run fast and slow. Yeah, temper, another variable that sort of existed in the other game, but not the way that it exists here. Our rankings try to sanitize the data into something that can be quickly and easily consumed. And that's the point. Like, quickly and easily consumed. Maybe figure out obvious errors on how you're racing something, but don't say that the best time that was ever run at a distance is the best horse or anything like that. So that would be my advice. And then the other advice is always, even if we don't get as many on this stream as I would like, is ask questions. There's so many smart people that want to help you. It's my refrain in all these streams is like, come fucking try and catch me. Like, come try to catch up to our stable. It's in my best interest to tell you and teach you everything that I know about the game, everything I think I know about the game, because if I can make you an informed participant in the game, that's better for me longer term. And I don't feel as if, absent some fucking crazy checkbook, that you're going to catch us in the game. I want the game to work for everybody, because if it works for everybody, it works best for me as well. So happy to help. I think from a streaming schedule standpoint, the next time I'll stream will be when the reveal happens, so that Monday morning, the 23rd, unless something crazy happens. That's what, 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. We'll probably go for a while because we've got 65 filly foals to reveal in our barn. We've got a couple of those 3-year-old fillies that'll retire right away. I want to look through the shockwave outcomes, those types of things. So should be a meaty stream. But in the meantime, do some homework yourself. See where horses may be improving over time, maybe getting worse over time. talk to people about what they expect to do for breeding, what they expect to do with their own colts, whether they've got an interesting 2 or 3 year old colt. Are they going to retire that? Are they going to continue to race it? What price are they thinking? Even if you don't breed on Monday, I think you're doing yourself a disservice to not have a pretty good idea of what your plan is going to be for the window. So that's all I've got. I appreciate every one of you tuning in. Like I dropped in the chat earlier, this will be archived to our YouTube channel. It'll be available on Twitch for a period of time. But they're all there on YouTube. So if you're looking for this, or if you want to refer some new players to the game, hit them up with that YouTube link. And we'll wrap there. Again, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the questions.